Gerard Whateley and Gareth Hall with you. Gareth, welcome.
Hello, Jerry. We might have to take you to the Osborne to have a couple of beers after Cup Day.
Might be eye-opening, do you think?
Yes.
I'm a naive young fellow. Johnny O'Neill's in the studio. He's got a smile on his face after the wakeful.
Morning.
Zenzella just from Pavitra. Zenzella boxes on and won it.
You want to be part of these big days,
Need
winning?
to be part of it. And having said that, I watched it with you, so you might be my good luck charm. I need you on Cup Day.
I can't believe you gave Hawksy a hug.
I did give Hawksy a hug too. I did.
And the Hawkses went race to race on the feature day in Sydney.
Zach Lloyd finds the run now on Miles Mission, and home it goes.
Zach Lloyd, bless his soul. Wayne, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Wow. Derby Day. Can we just go back to last Friday and go and do this all over again? What a day it was. And it was just so good to see. I don't know what the crowd was, but it must
71,000.
It was only 71. Felt like 201, probably because of 2 years of COVID of not having anyone there. So good. The racing was so good, and it didn't let us down, did it?
We've got some great categories to work through. There's all manner of controversy going on, and we're looking ahead to the Cup as well as reviewing what happens. The King's Gambit, Gareth, is yours. Take us away.
Couple of statements. Love Flemington. Great to have crowds back. It was just at its beautiful best. So love Flemington. Peter Moody's been a great traditionalist, and he loves looking back on the history, as you well know, Gerard writing the Black Caviar book about the wartime years. But he was embracing the new on Saturday, probably because he won $10 million with the Golden Eagle. And I think he owns 50% of I Wish I Win, which was great to see because I thought Peter Moody, he would say, well, we don't need these pop-up races, but once you win them and you're all for them. But I thought that was one great story because Luke Nolan and Peter Moody were the story of the weekend for mine because what they've been through and how Luke Nolan has been able to resurrect his career since Peter Moody has come back. I think it's just the perfect relationship. And the other statement I've got is like, I was talking to a few mates there last night and they said, what's your tip in the Melbourne Cup and how good is this field? And I said, well, Gold Trip has won one race and the handicapper says he's the best horse in the race and he's won one race. So it's one of the most unique, confusing Melbourne Cups that I think I've ever been involved with.
It's gloriously confusing,
yes.
I think. In a way, it's everything you want out of the Melbourne Cup. So, and I've said this, if you have a favourite number or colour or name or trainer or jockey, don't be put off by the experts because this is an anything cup.
It has to be history that the top weight in the Melbourne Cup's only won the one race.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have ever happened before.
That's set us up beautifully for our category. So let's delve into Flemington, where the three Group 1s, in a way, it might have been the story of three great jockeys. James McDonald, who's just about clocked the system, Michael D, who's having a beautiful purple patch, and Craig Williams. So I think the new tradition in racing should be the Group 1 jockey jumps off and runs back, high-fiving everyone down the Walk of the Roses. I thought that was a beautiful touch.
Not if you want to back the next winner because all clear's delayed, Gerard.
He fell off.
Well, he got thrown off, yeah.
Well, he fell off.
And jogged back. Yeah. And so it led to these great scenes. I was in the box just looking now. It's just high-fiving everyone as he came
Hurt
back.
those calves of his and straight into the ice bath, hey? That was it.
A derby upset. So sometimes the derbies are curious races. We spoke about this last week. The legacy piece thereafter is not usually that strong. And then when you get an upset, it's an upset that's trained by Chris Waller and blew most people out who are hailing the favourite as the winner all the way down the straight.
We're certainly in the numbers, Gerard. I think as far as our ratings went, the horse had sort of come off some interesting form, but hadn't been sort of over the ground obviously before, and certainly some very slowly run races. So it was about sort of fourth or fifth pick by that superstar stallion El Manzor. So I think we've got a pretty serious horse there, and I mean I think as we were talking about last week, you'd want to keep the first 5 or 6 in the race, I think. I think it's going to be a really good form race moving forward. There's no doubt Sharp and Smart ran really, really well. Mr. Maestro was a huge run from a long way back. Our horse Muramasa battled on really well and probably wasn't suited by the track. And Berkeley Square was good too. So I really think it's going to be a fantastic form race moving forward.
And Chris Waller, Wayne, he's just got something about these big grand final days. That horse,
he gets it right.
He improved a few lengths to beat Sharp and Smart after the Champion Stakes in Sydney.
Maybe so, but one thing you were just talking about that, I was just thinking the Sydney wet tracks, and you're looking at the form, that I think has a lot to do with it, because Flemington, I mean, you have to take your hat off to Flemington because we've had so much rain and it raced so well. Yeah, so you're running at Rose Hill and Randwick and you're running on bottomless tracks all year. So we're going to see this for the next 6 months, form be upside down because of racing on wet tracks, and you can go to Randwick and not handle it, and you go to Rose Hill and you love it, and vice versa. So they've come to Melbourne and done a job.
Michael D's few weeks, Caulfield Cup into a Victoria Derby.
Good on you, Mickey D, because he was under a little bit of pressure, Johnny. You know the jockeys these days, and when people are picking their jocks for these big Group 1s, I think the perfect example, Pinstripe. He rides Pinstripe for Enver Jusisovic, and people were saying, EJ, if you want him in your first Group 1, maybe you need to get a Group 1 jockey on there, or a jockey that they thought was Group 1 ability. But Mickey D's hard worker, he's proved all of his knockers wrong, and good on him.
Very, very hard worker, I agree with you. And he's always been a great rider, so he's just getting the just deserves and then the opportunities.
And he'll get a stack more too, because he can ride 51, whereas most of the jockeys struggle under 54. Excuse me, he will get a stack of opportunities now, because when you look at your lightweight jockeys, remember yesterday it was always go to go to Boss, go to Muntz, Craig Williams, you had those jockeys, whereas now Mick D's going to be on the front of everyone's minds all over Australia on lightweight, so he's going to pick up a stack more great rides, in his career.
And riding for Waller too. Obviously, Chris has got so many horses, so it's fantastic. He's having success with him.
In Secret was dominant in the Coolmore, so I thought that the horse you'd like to own, would you like to own In Secret, or would you like to own Giga Kick?
I wouldn't mind owning both of them, Gerard. It'd be pretty good.
I made you pick between the three-year-olds.
I'd probably own the filly, to be honest. I think it was an extraordinary win, wonderful ride. We obviously had Coolangatta in the race, and Craig rode it really well. Probably went sort of 50 or 60 metres too early. He wouldn't say that, but we think he did. But having said that, it wouldn't have made any difference. It was a wonderful win, and I think it's a superstar, that horse.
I asked that question to the Racing Review team this morning on Giddy Up. You can listen to that podcast if you haven't listened to it. But it was interesting to listen to Jules Vallance and Jack Dickens and Dean Watling. Both of them said, or three of them said, basically Jackano out of that race is the horse that they would like to own. Thought it was unlucky and came to the end of its preparation. And I went the other way after I looked at that replay a couple of times. I would have In Secret over Giga Kick, but Buenos Notches is the horse that I want. He should have finished a lot closer there yesterday, Hawksy.
No, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go Giga Kick. The two greatest races this carnival, and this will be the two greatest races of this racing season, is the Cox Plate and the Everest. There's no doubt about that. Giga Kick has got the best form of any 3-year-old in the country because he's whopped every older racehorse. Now, In Secret hasn't had a chance to take on the older horses that wait for age, but Giga Kick, if he can get a job done on Saturday, I'll go back one step. We don't know Giga Kick's full potential yet, because if you go and look at his every race start, I got goosebumps on even train him. If you go and look what he's done, he's untapped. Now, the tap has to stop eventually, but I'll tell you what, mate, he blew him away in a Danehill, and he did this and he did that, and he just won Everest, and you're comparing him to a 3-year-old filly.
But In Secret's done that as well. She went to a new level by the numbers.
Yeah, but she hasn't taken on the older horses. So you've got to give a horse at weight for age a bigger tick. And you know what? He's a great, great horse. Sounds silly, but on Saturday, he could go to being an elite horse.
When you're difficult to buy for, you end up with a collection of gift vouchers for birthday and Christmas, JB Hi-Fi and the bookstore down the road.
Are you trying to get a few black caviar books sold?
And
you can get a voucher to the Osborne.
What am I going to do with all of this? What am I going to do with all of this? And so what Vin Cox did with Godolphin, he went and bought In Secret with all these gift vouchers. So what about that for a story?
It's interesting because Matt Becker, who does a lot of work with us and actually bought Zenzella, there was 3 horses that he loved at the sales that year, and In Secret was one of them, and he was telling everybody about it on Saturday after the races.
So he had $900,000 worth of vouchers from their bonus bred New South Wales horses. And went, we'll buy this horse with our vouchers. I need those sort of vouchers.
100%. They've done that twice. I think Vin Cox he's picked out 1 or 2 horses at the sales since he's taken over as the boss of Godolphin, and he hasn't missed. He spent a little bit of money, Hawksy, but he hasn't missed.
The one thing that's amazing, it doesn't affect us as much here in Australia, but when you go to Europe, the 2 powerhouses are Godolphin, Darley, and Coolmore. The Coolmore Stud Stakes won by Godolphin. There they were up on the podium together. I saw that and I reckon that happened in Australian Cup there a few years ago as well, the same thing. So not sure Sheikh Mohammed would have been giggling. I don't know whether John Magnier would have thought that picture was one for the mantelpiece.
It's not going to be on the front page of Coolmore's brochure.
No. We won't be promoting anything to do with the Godolphin.
The legacy piece out of the race and the day was James McDonald and the stretch. So he put together 4 winners. It feels like it will be a surprise now if he doesn't break his record of 10 across the week. He picked off the first of the Group 1s. It felt, so just chatting to people, he's almost got the system clocked, is if he's getting offered 3 or 4 rides in each race, and you do the form adequately, so he's picking the right horse and then he's outriding everybody else.
Yeah.
It becomes a self-fulfilling circle. It's going so well.
I was lucky enough, I was having dinner with Mark Guestie's manager, and Glenn Boss popped around to have a chat. And it was fascinating just listening to those two talk about J-Mac. And G. Boss, and he's been on the record in saying this, that he will be the greatest jockey that has ever walked this planet after his career. And we explaining Guesty, like he would have had the choice on man choice, and also, of course, some sharp and smart for the Derby. So he has these difficult decisions that he needs to make. But he's just got this aura about him, and he's so confident, and he puts his horses in the right spot, and he's just giving them every opportunity, and he's on the best horses. And I think the other great anecdote that Guesty was explaining to us yesterday was that he walked out of Flemington after dominating, and the first thing that he said to Guesty, his manager, bloody Derby. I don't know how I didn't win that. And that's why he's so good at the moment, because he just hates losing.
Huge crowds of people go to see wonderful sports people.
Yep.
Tiger Woods, Big Jordan, Ronaldo, Maradona. I think he's in that category. I think he might be the greatest of all time. And for people that aren't mad racing people, just to go and watch him perform at an elite level consistently and give horses every opportunity is just a wonderful thing to see.
What's he like when you talk to him? So you legged him up with your filly there on Saturday. So what is it like? What's he say before the race? Explain that to us.
Look, I have to say that he's always so confident in everything that he does, and he obviously does a hell of a lot of form. So, a really good example on the weekend was his ride on Zenzella. And I don't think there's another jockey that would have done what he did, where I was standing and watching the races with you guys, and clearly he was 3 and 4 and 5 deep pushing forward. He wanted to find a spot. And I think after you've travelled a furlong and a half or something and you're doing that in a staying race, most jockeys would take a pull, drop their hands and go back and try to get in. But he just backed himself and persisted, found the rail, got a lovely trail in behind, and then it was just a beautiful ride. So, I mean, he's just fantastic, the way he communicates. And also after the races, he always gives you a call and talks about the race and summarises the race. So I think he's the complete package, there's no doubt.
And there was a spread, it was double figure odds on that. So you're not taking a jockey where they're all $2.30 favourites.
I looked at it. I'm not potting him at all. He's got the edge on everyone else. There's no doubt about that.
What have you got against Macca?
I don't have anything. Oh. He won a golden slipper for me, Gareth. He's done more for me than you'll do for me, let me tell you. You fell on your sword there.
We're talking about 10 wins. He's got to beat 10 wins, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Well, he's got Criminal Code. It'll be winning race 3 tomorrow. He's got Cool Cap, another one of Waller's. It'll be winning race 4. He's got one of Keith Biggs' horses, one of Waller's. It'll be hard to beat in race 8. He'll win race 9 with Catalan, so he's going to win 3 there, and I don't know anything about the 2-year-old. So he's going to win. He's going to win 3 tomorrow without the 2-year-old.
What were you about to say about Macca then?
Yeah, what were you going to say, Hawksy?
On Saturday, he had 5 favourites, 1 second favourite. So he's got the book stacked.
Yeah,
now
he's clocked it.
The end result is you've got to be good enough to get to that level. He hasn't got panels on them. I mean, he's not 12 lengths better than him. You put J-Mac on 10, 12 to 1 shots, and you mightn't see him for the whole day. Let's be fair about it. No, hang on.
I don't know about that.
No. Well, you got to get there, and you got to get to be the elite, to be in that elite category. And then once success breeds success. It's a great line, isn't it? But he is getting the best of the best choices. There's not many people that are going, no, I'm not going to put J-Mac on. I mean, I think Paul Snowden summed it up when he pleaded with Mark Guest after they won the race here on Saturday, and I heard him say it on air, and he walked back with me. He said, Well, he's just so good. He's like D. Beedman of yesteryear. But, I mean, is J-Mac better than D. Beedman? I don't know. Is Kingston Town better than Winks? I mean, we probably don't need to – we probably just need to look at them for the era that they're in right now and appreciate them because, one, you can't compare. And I suppose the difference is between – you know, I mean, Bossy's saying those great jockeys, but gee whiz, I mean, he rode with Cassidy and he rode with Dye and he rode with Dittman and he rode with Beedman. I mean, you know, we don't need to be putting J-Mac in that category. J-Mac should be in the J-Mac category only and don't compare him to anyone else.
But we love to do it.
No, I know you do, but it doesn't make him better than the rest.
I still think he'll be the greatest ever.
If he's going to break this record year on year, it's going to add an element to Champions Day for sure. Peter Moody and Luke Nolan winning the feature ace in Sydney, the Golden Eagle. They are one of the great partnerships. And the fact that Luke, I've just had him on the program, Luke doesn't thrive without Peter anymore. No, he's not getting many opportunities, but that partnership lasts. And it's beautiful. Gauchi and Hawkes, Beedman and Hawkes, Clark and Hayes when I was growing up. It was lovely that
Gitman and
they're
Tommy
still
Smith.
doing it.
We don't get to see that too much these days, do we? A trainer and a jockey partnership. Maybe a Waller and a McDonald in a way.
We did. We had Greg Hall and Damon Oliver at the same time riding with Freedman's, but it's a different world now today because jockeys jump, swap, change, interstate, blah, blah, blah.
I think the loyalty that Peter's shown to Luke is fantastic. You know, they've had so much wonderful experience over such a long period of time, and Luke certainly struggled a little while Peter was away. He didn't sort of pick up all the prime rides, and Pete's come back and they've stuck loyal and obviously worked really well together, know each other well, and that's evident from the result on the weekend. So fantastic, I think.
Well, I think that just shows how close they are as mates. I think it's the perfect mateship. Like Moody tells Nolan down the line, mate, if you want to ride for me, I'll give you the opportunities, but you get fit. You make sure you work hard. I know if you're fit, you can't bullcrap me. So you get fit, get ready to go. And if you do that, I'll give you the opportunities. And Moody says he's never been hungrier. He's never been more determined to win.
What was that great line Peter Moody said? He said, Luke Nolan, he told me he had a mortgage. He said, I told him to go and have 3 mortgages. He said, I like it when they have a mortgage. That was a great line, that.
The thing I love about it from an owner's perspective too is if you've got horses running at Benalla that are young horses learning their trade, you get Luke Nolan if you're there. And Luke Nolan's riding in the great races as well. So you get the benefit of having a wonderful rider in provincial and, you know, educating horses on the way through, which I think is great.
And Gareth, I wish I invalidated your view in the middle portion of the spring where you had him pegged as a horse capable of a Cox Plate. He didn't win the Toorak and then he goes and wins the $10 million race. And you sort of go, okay, where does this horse fit in 12 months' time in this spring carnival?
Well, we finally got a fast run race. So the best horses usually win those races, even though I think Johnny's horse was a little unlucky. But I wish I win. That turn of foot, like when Luke Nolan pushed the button, he nearly fell off. He accelerated that quickly. And Peter Moody says, I could set him for a Newmarket first up and then win an All-Star Mile and then aim him up at a Cox Plate. That's how good he is. I think he'll be one of the stars next year.
So I think that was the signature win of Saturday, which will be irksome.
Correct.
In the Sydney-Melbourne debate. So there's 2 elements to this. I think Saturday showed that the Golden Eagle meeting is having an impact on the Derby meeting, and I'm sure by the time we sit next Monday, we'll all acknowledge that Champions Day is the premier day of the Melbourne Cup Carnival. I think it's a genius of an idea. I think we have to be super careful with what's going on. To me, competition looks like cannibalisation in racing right now.
And I think you're probably right there, Gerard. I mean, to have Jamie Carr as the face of the racing in relation to our spring carnival and have her not ride Derby Day and take some rides up in Sydney is pretty evident there. And, I think you pointed out some stuff earlier that Chris Waller's won a Derby and he's actually not in Melbourne to experience that. So there's definitely some challenges around it.
You win a Melbourne Cup, a Cox Plate and a Derby and you're not here. Yeah. I'm not laughing at the bloke because he's in Sydney where headquarters are and you've got your great stable up there and you can't be in 2 places at once. So it's that is a stat I don't reckon will ever be broken again. You've won the Melbourne Cup, the Derby and the Cox Plate and you weren't there for any of those 3. That would irk the hell out of me.
I have a different opinion.
He wouldn't be complaining.
No. And Charlie Duckworth there, the foreman for Chris Waller, so he had to be interviewed by Eddie Maguire. Now, I agree with you. That's probably not a great look to promote the game, Gerard. But to me, I think the 70,000 people at Flemington would have loved to have seen Jamie Carr, but they were having a great time and they enjoyed the racing, and you're still seeing world-class jockeys. And you could watch her in Sydney. So I think that you just got to live with that. And out of the Golden Eagle, there wouldn't be too many. None of those horses would have competed on Derby Day. Which
Fangirl
ones?
was scratched out of the
but
out of
she
the
was,
Empire Rose.
She was coming.
She should have won.
Yeah,
don't worry about
should
have, maybe. It should have just won.
But it is what it is. And I don't mind the race day from a racing lover. And you might say I'm living in the box. But from a racing lover, I thought it was a terrific, entertaining day of racing.
Yes, there is what did Francesca say? It's a big country and it's a long year.
Yes.
But we're jamming all in on top of each other. Is Sydney form superior to Melbourne form?
Well, looking at the results so far, Gerard, we would say definitely. The sprinters, no doubt. The stayers at this stage, no doubt. So if we had have sat back, and Hawksy was talking about the tracks earlier and said horses were going to come through that really terrible sort of environment in Sydney with the tracks due to all the rain and come down here and compete like they are, I don't think anybody would have thought that was going to happen. I certainly didn't. So
no, you don't, and we didn't. I'm glad Sydney's weather for the next 2 weeks is looking good because they've copped it enough, and we've spoken about the weather all year. But I don't know. It's the same. It's is the Derby too far? Is the Caulfield Cup got the right balloting conditions? It's the Sydney v Melbourne thing. Where it's different now is that your leading 6 stables in Sydney have all got stable bases in Melbourne at Flemington. So, I remember my lucky day, Luke Nolan ran second in Melbourne Cup, and he did all his work in Melbourne. His first 5 starts were in Sydney, and then he came back and he won was called the Lexus, and ran in the Melbourne Cup, and they're going the Sydney horse, and all my staff are going, but he's ours. So it doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, the bottom line is the Sydney v Melbourne thing with trainers and owners now, you're obviously, as I said, with the leading half dozen stables in Sydney, they can bring them to Melbourne and run the first up. Animo can run in Melbourne first up. He can run in Sydney first up. So it gives them a string to their bow. And the Sydney form does look better, but why? I don't know. Were they superior horses? Were they better wet trackers? I'm not quite sure because we raced on wet tracks the last couple of weeks in Melbourne, Cox Plate Day and Derby Day. So if it had been a good 4, would some of the placings be different? I'm sure they would.
It's just been one of those years. The Sydney form lines have been the better form lines for these feature Melbourne races.
Doesn't feel isolated, I must admit, in the recent years in the Melbourne Cup.
Racing's the winner, though. Racing's the winner.
So the pressure index is really obviously the hit run international jockeys, isn't it? I don't know whether this is linked to the Oh-No files or not.
Well, I think the international, I'll put the analogy for cricketers, like the English cricket team coming up for the Ashes. If Joe Root turned up on the Thursday before the first test on a Saturday and he was facing Hazelwood and Stark at the Gabba, he would struggle because he would need to get used to the Australian conditions. I think the international jockeys don't get, and they probably can't because they've got too many commitments overseas, but they don't give themselves the best opportunity. They arrive a couple of days before, then they've got to try and work out the different ways that the Australian jockeys ride. It's just a completely different ball game, and it hasn't worked this spring.
It's been a disaster, mate. To be
well,
honest.
why are you putting them on,
look,
Johnny?
I have to say,
self-interest here.
And I think it goes back the other way too. We sent Mark Zara over to ride Very Elegant in a race. He didn't get there until sort of a day or so before. People are dealing with jet lag. People don't understand the tracks. They don't understand the pace. I'm not potting Mark's ride in that race, but at the end of the day, I just don't think it works. And looking at Jamie Spencer, who is obviously a world-class jockey, there's no doubt about that, but we race very differently here than what we do overseas. Clearly, there's a horse and a half gap between most of the horses. In Australia, we ride very tight. I mean, Jamie rode our horse, as you probably all saw, in the Golden Eagle, and we thought we'd be one out running 4th, maybe 6th. If you have a look at the overhead, he didn't push up at all, and a bit of pressure from the outside dropped his hands, and we found ourselves 12th or 13th defence with absolutely no hope whatsoever.
You got to be careful there because you said Jamie, not Jamie Carr, Jamie Spencer. It's amazing when you make it, don't you? You can call him Michael or Elvis or Elton. Now it's Jamie, but we're talking about Jamie Spencer. But you know what? I said it last week, and I'm going to say it again. They have a mile straight at Royal Ascot. Here, we burn out the barriers, hustle for position, rip round that first corner. They hit the brakes. We run fair up their backside, and then home we go. Different racing, different conditions. You can't blame them for getting lost, and Frankie Dettori is testament to that year on year on year on year.
So he'll get suspended. I would imagine he's been.
Suspended from you?
Has Frankie been outed for knocking half the field over in the?
No, it wasn't him, was it?
Oh,
in the Golden Eagle.
He was beautiful.
Oh, okay.
You want to have a look at that too?
Yeah.
I mean, again, world-class jockey, absolute superstar, and a terrific
Jamie
bloke.
Carr got
As Jamie is,
suspended
they're
twice.
They're both fantastic people and great riders, but I'm not quite sure what he was doing on Chris's horse that week.
So why do you put them on then?
Well, I think in the instance with Jamie Spencer, he had a lot to do with us purchasing the horse originally with Wilborn and the team. So he had ridden it in all of its starts overseas and sort of put his hand up to come over and ride it. So it was sort of part of the agreement with some of the English owners that he would retain it. So,
as I said the other day, let Animo go over and be trained by Charlie Appleby, and James Cummins can just roll over there. It won't be easy for us to go and do what we do over there. That's what I'd do with Animo. I'd give him to Charlie and go on 1A and 1B and take the wife and have a great week.
So the beaten favourites, the two are so light infantry there. Who knows? It was sort of I just got to the end of it and thought, I don't know.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, I just watched the replay again, and just to be 12th or 13th defence, Gerard, and come around the corner and get smashed and knocked back in and try to push out. And, I mean, he never really had a chance to get at the horse at all. I think it got beaten a length and a half or 2 lengths or something. Certainly looks like he's a 2,000-metre horse to me. I had a really good chat with Kieran about it and David yesterday, because we've got an agreement that the horse will go back to the UK and race over there at Ascot. But we're now sort of going to have a conversation later today to see if we can leave the horse here for the Australia Cup, teach him, put him in the system here, and then probably maybe even go All-Star Mile into the Australia Cup, and then potentially the Ranvet, and then probably send him over for Ascot. So that would be fantastic if that happened. There's a lot of water to go under the bridge to have discussions with the English owners and the trainer overseas, but it would make sense knowing that we're going to send the horse back into the snow, into the freezing cold.
You're
in
good,
the UK.
Johnny. You're good. That was the plan all along.
We're doing everything we can, Gareth.
The other beaten favourites, the whole of Australia and New Zealand was on Le Creek. I can't actually recall a runner in a Group 1 race being like this, sort of $3.20 into $1.70, just on the weight of everywhere you turned, you were being told this is a freak, where you sort of lose your nerve and go, oh, well, she must be.
Yeah.
And she was just a solid run. She's just a horse.
Well, she was disappointing. With the market expectations, she didn't perform like she did in the Arrowfield to win that Group 1 in New Zealand. Hawksy, I don't know if I had some people look at her in the yard and think, ooh, she might have trained off a little bit. I'm no yard expert.
They're hard these days, those for favourites. I looked at all the favourites. There were of all the favourites, there were 3 that won in Melbourne and only one won in Sydney.
Yeah.
And so, you know what? These are, as you said right off the top, Gerard, whatever you like, just go wide. Go, you know.
So if she runs $3.20, you go, yep, that's a.
But at $1.90, was it
once
worth
she was
that?
$1.70.
I think she's pretty good, Gerard.
Yeah.
I think she's pretty good. From a ratings perspective, that was one that we had a massive crack at trying to buy. So she rates
but
very, very
$1.70
highly.
Sunline in a Cox Plate that just wins, isn't it, really? I think that's your point, isn't it, Gerard?
Yeah. Oh, look, I think that's right. But I think also maybe it was an afterthought. There was a couple of runs in New Zealand. It's come over. Maybe it did travel as well as what everybody had have hoped.
That's a fair
Having
call,
said
'cause
that,
we don't know that as punters. You're hoping, and when you go to the races, you expect that every horse is perfect, but you don't know it hasn't been here for 5 days and it's turned its backside to the feed bin. Because does it happen? 100% it happens.
after they travelled 300, though, we were all happy to be on at the $1.70. James found the perfect spot, one off. They were
So
trucking
you
along
backed
in
it too,
front.
did you?
Yeah, we all did our money, Hawksy.
I love how you threw we into it. We all.
I followed Gerard in.
Oh, did you?
The oh no files. Righto, who's got an oh no?
It's his file.
Gerard. Again, I'm hoping that a number of us can spend some time at Royal Ascot this year and watch Jamie Spencer ride over there. He may even take us out for dinner.
Not
If he ever wants to come back here, we need to get onto border security because we are not allowing him in the country. Lovely man, great fella, beautiful rider, and Jamie, look forward to Hawks. We might go to Nobu with him or something in London.
He'll be
But
taking
he
you
will
any,
not- it
he'll,
was-
be, he'll be taking you anywhere except out, I reckon.
Well, I'm telling you, it was horrendous. I've never seen anything like it. 4th or 6th one off the fence, beautiful barrier, just push up, hold your spot. People yelling and screaming, waving. Here he is, 13th defence, scratching his head in, out. Smash, bang, whack, wallop, whatever, got beaten
What
a length and a half.
what price did you get him? Because I found the betting fascinating. He nearly touched $8
He
late.
did. Well, because people worked out Jamie was right.
Yeah, I know.
I think that's what the problem was, Gerard.
I
You
thought
said
that,
that. You
yeah.
made that call.
I did it.
A week and a half ago, and I was defending.
Yeah.
And
Don't
I've
throw me
now-
out of the bus now.
No. And I'm anyway. Wonderful international rider. Ascot, I'm all over it. Melbourne border security. I'll be there.
If he was playing in the England cricket team, he'd bat at 5 in England, and he'd be one of their stars. He probably wouldn't be on the tour because he just doesn't handle the Australian conditions.
It's a harsh oh no. Did someone have an oh yes?
Yes, I had an oh yes and an oh no. Oh no loft after I backed him for the Melbourne Cup, and he would have defeated Deauville Legend because it would have been a heavy track. That was disappointing. And oh yes, for the Flemington roar of the crowd once again, 71,000. You heard it in when we played the feature races there, just the background underneath Matty Hill's call. There's no better sound for mine than racing and then at the MCG and those big roars. That's sport at its best.
I'm so curious. After Tuesday's work from Loft, did you all gather around privately and go, "Are we going to win the Melbourne Cup here?"
I haven't heard James McDonald ever so confident.
Yeah.
So I know Gareth was there and with a couple of the boys, and we had a bit of a chat, but then sort of J-Mac walked away privately. He said, I've never worked a horse that's gone as good leading into a cup, so get ready, boys.
And stood in a hole on the
Yeah,
Thursday
look,
morning?
and the feedback again here is that was just going out for a trot and canter, to be honest. There wasn't anything in it, and as I said, I feel devastated for Marcel, the trainer, and I tried to get hold of him over the weekend. Apparently, he's been in his hotel room for 4 days, so he's devastated, and the girls are devastated. So
He's probably with Jamie Spencer singing Kumbaya and sucking each other's thumb.
I feel like we got lost there.
Like they got lost.
Jared,
Boom, boom. Good from you.
Yeah.
I have an oh no. See if we can pick up the trend in this race.
Yeah.
Pelic, then Magic of Mellow, Mashani Twilight, Mashani Tycho, Mashani Valor, Mashani Sienna, and the last one was Mashani Star.
What was the 12th man scheme? Every horse with an S in his name. Come
If
on.
that race caller's not getting $500,000 a race, you wouldn't be. You
What
wouldn't
was
be
that?
extraordinary.
That was the first race at Eagle Farm on Saturday.
joking.
So Metro Brisbane, total salute, and that should be the new entry exam for aspiring race callers.
I would have
Take this
thought.
away, spend an hour, we'll see you, and come in and show us if you're any good or not.
There's the GGs in Tassie. There's the greyhounds, the Bales. You get sometimes that in a race, but I've never really heard that in a gallop.
We could do it with
Brisbane.
Yulong something, Yulong this, Yulong that.
Yeah.
In the battlers for the Yulong horses.
If you're going to do that, there should be a sub clause that says you can no more than 2 in the race. It's you can name them whatever you like, but you are not allowed to have more than 2 in a race. The race callers of the world need to unite. So, Johnny, you lost Le Don de Vie in the veterinary process, but there's a sequel.
Got the information this morning, Gerard, actually. As we all know, he was CT scanned and found to have an issue. Couldn't get an MRI done in time because they were doing the other cup horses. So a decision was obviously made via the vets and stewards to pull him straight out of the race. He's had his MRI and he's fine. So he's very low risk. And at this stage, I would imagine he'll be running on Saturday,
At
last
Flemington.
Saturday at Flemington.
Right.
That's a disgrace. That can't happen in our great race. You
Well,
can't-
it's interesting because, I think we've all been talking about the health of the horses and the care of the horses, which is the most important thing at the end of the day. But what is clear is we've just got to get better with this. So if we are going to do the CT scans, and I think we need to do them, there's no doubt, we need to be following up.
Why didn't you do one
Gerard.
straight away?
Well, I'm not quite sure. I think we need to get to
That's
the bottom
wrong.
of it, though.
If I back Le Don de Vie in the Melbourne Cup and I miss out on a start after hearing that,
I feel sorry for the other owners. The
yeah.
guys put a lot of money in, and there's probably 10 or 12 guys that have never had a cup runner before that are entitled to have one. You know?
So the disgrace is the death of horses in the Melbourne Cup.
100%.
That's why we're here.
Yes.
And I think Durston will be the other interesting case study as to what is found subsequently. And then this will need to evolve, obviously. But yeah, that's interesting. What are your... Oh, so you're going to buck our seedings, Wayne, and just give us one
Yep.
for the Melbourne Cup?
Vow and declare. That's it.
Just defy all of history
That's
and we're
it.
3 years on.
That's it.
Be an extraordinary story.
Have a look at his form. Just his only query is the wet track. It's dry outside right now.
you're gonna have a bet.
I actually am going to have a bet.
Oh, there you go.
100%.
Three seedings, John. So first, second, and third.
Just quickly, if that does happen with Wayne, And
You'll hear about it Wednesday.
Well, you need to be standing out in the rain on your own because the hail will be down and people will be throwing cups
They
and
do
bananas
anyway.
and
They
whatever
do
it is.
anyway
There's
at me.
no
It's
chance.
okay. Get in line.
I think Realm of Flowers can win. I think it's got great wet track form. It'll definitely stay. I really like Terry Henderson's horse. I can't pronounce it, but Dark and Eat Sweet Junior. I think it was a great run in the Sydney Cup on the wet track, and it'll definitely stay as well. And I think our horse Interpretation's got a great hope because it'll stay as well.
Gareth?
I think Interpretation, if they ride it properly, can win this year's Cup. From Gold Trip, I think Kieran Murray and David Eustace can play a major part here. I even give Smoke and Romans. He's the forgotten horse. He was the favourite for the Caulfield Cup and didn't get a great ride. And you've got to put Deauville Legend in. If it's a soft track and the rain doesn't come, he wins. If it's heavy, you take him on every day.